pipe leaking rust on the linoleum. Preacher on the corner selling hope from a podium. Elite counting singles by the payphone casing. Unmarked Taurus down the avenue was pacing. The neon sign flickering, the block is getting freeze. Wind cutting sharp through the counterfeit fleeces. Nobody talked to investigators in the hall. Another name spray painted fresh on the wall. We mapped the territory by the distribution spot. Shorty sat and watch inside the gravel vacant lots. The landlord took the boiler down, the air is looking gray. We used the gas stove blue flame to clear the chill away. The digital bank clock is reading 10 below. Traffic on the bypass is moving terrible and slow. I keep the razor blade tucked tight inside the lining. No time for the talking when the operation's signing. The hallway light bulb got shattered by a stray slug. Stepping over puddle water mixed with diesel drug. The cold environment make the bricks look like iron plates. You either calculate the move or get swallowed by the weight. The asphalt is bleeding while the clock tick down. We tracking every shadow moving through the phantom town. The fittest make the currency, the weak men fall. The ledger doesn't balance when your back's to the wall. Yeah, yeah. The asphalt is bleeding while the clock tick down. Second enterprise open up across the lane. A whole new configuration handling the pain. The precinct detective got a folder full of Polaroids. Most of the faces turned to ghosts or the system voids. We smoked the nickel bags just to numb the copper taste. Too many court dates and too many lives gone to waste. I saw a gold chain snatched right off a schoolboy neck. The perpetrator ran inside the building for a check. The copper wire was stripped right out the basement of the spot. The bullet hole inside the plexiglass is getting hot. We don't expect a resolution from the legal apparatus. The status on the pavement is dictated by the weapon status. I keep my signatures off the contracts they distribute, demanding that the imitation layers pay the tribute. The wintertime is stripping all the leaves off the city trees. The block is paralyzed, the lookout's waiting for the freeze. I keep the focus sharp like a box cutter edge, never backing down from the architectural edge. The asphalt is bleeding while the clock tick down. We tracking every shadow moving through the phantom town. The fittest make the currency, the weak men fall. The ledger doesn't balance when your back's to the wall. Yeah, yeah. The asphalt is bleeding while the clock tick down. The street sweeper never make it down the secondary tier. The heavy trucks idling until the corridor is clear. The court date is printed on the blue recycling sheet. Another entry added to the ledger on the street. The iron fire escape is rattling from the transit train. A sudden downpour turning into frozen gray rain. The metal shutter slam across the pharmacy front. The youngest shooter on the corner dropping down a blunt. No summaries offered for the soldier couldn't clear the slate. The chronicle is locked inside the industrial weight. The asphalt is bleeding while the clock tick down. We tracking every shadow moving through the phantom town. The fittest make the currency, the weak men fall. The ledger doesn't balance when your back's to the wall. Yeah, yeah. Project elevator stuck between the third and fourth. Draft blowing, freezing from the rivers heading north. 3 lookouts standing by the radiator grate, blowing steam on the knuckles just to check the weight. The undercover Buick got a dented fender trim, navigating spaces where the corridor is dim. We tuck the chrome pieces in the oversized down, avoiding all the operations running through the town. The building superintendent sealing up the cellar chute, runners mapping pathways down the secondary route. I see a $10 token drop inside the slush, a counterfeit 20 in the midnight store rush. No time for the errors when the budget getting tight. We counting up the inventory underneath the night. The asphalt is cracked where the heavy diesel park, leaving only grease stains moving in the dark. The old heads on the bench sipping fluid from a bag, verifying names before they put them in the tag. The geometry is hostile on the avenue block. You either watch your perimeter or run out of clock. The block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. We just the shadows moving through the heavy winter air. The precinct log the digits while the corner spots burn. We live long enough to see the next man take his turn. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, don't care, don't care, don't care. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, don't care. The copper piping rusted inside the hallway frame. A whole generation getting swallowed by the game. We count the crumpled paper notes inside a plastic jar. The driver keeping watch beside a stolen sedan car. I saw the gold link snatched right off a shorty neck. The perpetrator running through the alley for a check. The system got us cataloged, understand it fouls. Detectives looking through the Polaroid pictures pals. No algorithmic smoothing when you're dealing with the floor. We strip the polish till the raw metal hit the door. The winter environment make the concrete look like lead. The calculated movements keeping all the families fed. I keep a box cutter, razor tucked inside the cap. Navigating corners on the Metropolitan map. The hallway light bulb got shattered by a straight lead. We stepping over puddle water where the pavement bled. The narrative is heavy and the atmosphere is cold. Another structural breakdown before the pack is sold. The block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. We just the shadows moving through the heavy winter air. The precinct log the digits while the corner spots burn. You live long enough to see the next man take his turn. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, don't care, don't care, don't care. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, don't care. The final shift is closing by the timber yard gate. The lookout on the roof is dropping down the balance weight. The court date is printed on the blue recycling leaf. Another entry added to the chronicle of grief. No summary is offered when the microphone line cuts. The history is locked inside the industrial ruts. The engine idling slow along the expressway lane, leaving the territory to the frozen gray rain. The block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. We just the shadows moving through the heavy winter air. The precinct log the digits while the corner spots burn. You live long enough to see the next man take his turn. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, don't care, don't care, don't care. Yeah, the block don't freeze and the pavement don't care. Don't care, 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 don't care. I'm the raw executioner, regular ruin of the fake. Breaking down the percentage of the money that they make. The high velocity syllable cutting right through the layout. Forcing every single fraudulent runner into a payout. I hit the corner with momentum, the denim is extra heavy. Steady keeping the pressure balanced inside of the levee. You talking about a status you never could validate. While I stand at the threshold, locking the iron gate. The vocabulary is kinetic, apologetic to none. Splitting the opposition before the setting the sun. The Metapron sector is tracking operation, causing the structural damage across the entire nation. I hold the rhythm in a vice, rolling the dice twice, slicing through the generic layers like an item of ice. The enterprise is moving regardless of interference, clearing the catalog out and dropping the disappearance. You style biting the bounce, but you lacking the inner core, leaving your entire presentation flat on the cellar floor. The tactical grammar is a tool that we use to command, demanding the full tribute across the industrial land. We running through the pockets of the loud and the proud, leaving the pretending silent inside of a crowded crowd. Yeah, the tactical grammar's a tool that we use to command. The microphone line is a live wire conducting a spark, marking the perimeter while we operate in the dark. Rewrite the posture, but you lacking the actual weight. An amateur handler getting trapped by the secondary gate. I'm the Northern Division rider, the ultimate provider, leaving the generic copycat scattered right beside her. The dialect is correct, collecting it for respect, connecting the dots while you're waiting for the check to collect. I keep the razor sharp, cutting right through the hyperbole, ripping the sample loop apart, doing it thoroughly. The master of the cadence, leaving them in the grievance, achieving the victory while you losing your allegiance. We stack the wood in crates according to the block coordinate. No room for the loose talker or the insubordinate. The network is expanding through a calculated route, extracting all the value till we squeeze the weakness out. Grammar is a tool that we use to command, demanding the full tribute across the industrial land. We running through the pockets of the loud and the proud, leaving the pretender silent inside of a crowded crowd. Yeah, the tactical grammar is a tool that we use to command. The tactical grammar's a tool that we use to command. Your ledger is closing down, the balance is getting checked. No accommodation offer for a project layout defect. We seal the shutters tight across the avenue slot. Every single secondary exit and gateway block. The needle skips across the uncleaned acetate groove, leaving the entire venue completely frozen to move. The tactical grammar is a tool that we use to command, demanding a full tribute across the industrial land. We run it through the pockets of the loud and the proud, leaving the pretending silent inside of a crowded crowd. Yeah, the tactical grammar is a tool that we use to command. The tactical grammar is a tool that we use to command. Yeah. The morning sun hitting the brickwork at a sideways slant. Old heads arguing on the corner about what they can and can't. MZ sitting on a wooden crate by the kiosk door, reading news from a paper spread across the floor. We used to count the transit buses from the concrete overpass, watching the diesel exhaust turn them on the sky to glass. Before the digital ledgers and the remote dispatch grids, we were just running through the alleyways as regular kids, tucking the plastic football under a patched up sleeve, chasing a dream that the environment wouldn't let us achieve. I remember the smell of roasting maize on an open mesh, the cool wind from the highlands, keeping the spirit fresh before the operations got heavy and the contract sign. We had a completely different map drawn inside the mind. Now the logistics of the day-to-day demand a toll, leaving a heavy residue across the worker's soul. I take a minute just to calibrate the moving gears, looking at the architecture standing through the shifting years. One time for the origins that kept the foundation straight before we ever had to calculate the heavy cargo weight.
This one time for the memories we left on the floor, before we locked the deadbolts on the industrial door. The needle tracks a groove while the soul vocal sigh. We're looking at the past through a set of unblinking eyes. Yeah, just one time for the memories we left on the floor.
The old neighborhood tavern got a brand new aluminum sign, but the characters inside are still leaning along a line, discussing betting odds and matches from a foreign league, trying to find a little margin to escape the daily fatigue. I saw a youth yesterday emulating the exact same stance I used to hold when I was looking for a forward advance. A counterfeit leather jacket and a calculated walk, trying to dominate the sector with some heavy street talk. We give them room to operate, but keep the perimeter clean. The system doesn't tolerate in a monitor scene. I remember the exact night the Cypher Souls tape was born, sitting in a small room until the early hours of morn, flipping the SP1200 cuts to find a perfect loop, trying to elevate the cadence for the immediate group. The world turns a little colder when the profit line scale, but the raw authenticity is never going up for sale. I keep the bass line grounded in the muddy river sill, honoring the structural layout that the ancestors
want. One time for the memories we left on the floor, before we locked the deadbolts on the industrial door. The needle tracks a groove while the soul vocal sighs. We're looking at the past through a set of unblinking eyes. Yes, just one time for the memories we left on the floor. Sunset dropping down behind the secondary dock. The watchman checking the padlocks around the entire block. The soul sample slows down its pitch on the final spin, reminding every single listener where the thoughts begin. Yeah, no summary is necessary when the feeling is pure. The chronicle is locked and the delivery is sure. Yeah, yeah. Just one time for the memories we left on the floor, before we locked the deadbolts on the industrial door. The needle tracks the groove while the soul vocal sighs. We're looking at the past through a set of unblinking eyes. One time for the memories we left on the floor,
carved bone, a strategist operating strictly inside the dead zone. We don't react to the immediate noise on the street. We track the underlying currents where the elements meet. The concrete foundation is porous, absorbing the rain. A clinical dissection of the local industrial pain. They analyze the symptom, but they miss the design. While we map the architecture line by precise line. The hallway is a vacuum where the cold air is compressed. Every single movement on the tile is thoroughly tested. I see the corporate entity trying to lease out the sector, operating without the clearance of the primary detector. The mercury is dropping down past the baseline mark, leaving only the essential numbers moving in the dark. No emotional investment in the inventory sheets. We just calculate the speed of the distribution fleets. The amateur is loud because he's chasing the shine. The master is silent because he's running the line. The environment is hostile, but the logic is clear. You eliminate the variable to conquer the fear.
The raw elements unbound. The structure is cold. The unvarnished chronicle is waiting to be told.
We strip the polish till the skeleton is showing plain.
Navigating the geography of the systematic strain.
Yeah, the raw elements unbound. The structure is cold.
The raw elements unbound.
The structure is cold. The second configuration opening up near the bay. A calculated maneuver to pull the attention away. The precinct supervisor logging the data in ink, trying to find a missing connection inside the link. We smoke the bitter leaf just to neutralize the lead, keeping the perimeter secure where the pavement bled. The system got a catalog of the standard mistakes. We avoid the trajectory that the common runner takes. No algorithmic smoothing on a raw iron plate. You either balance out the ledger or get crushed by the weight. I keep my signature detached from the standard contract, prioritizing the internal logic of the direct contact. The winter environment is stripping the territory bare, exposing every single weakness in the structural square. I keep the focus clinical like a surgical blade, never dropping the defense till the total balance is
The
paid.
raw elements unbound. The structure is cold. The unvarnished chronicle is waiting to be told.
We strip the polish till the skeleton is showing plain.
Navigating the geography of the systematic strain.
Yeah, the raw elements unbound. The structure is cold.
The raw elements unbound. The structure is cold. The unvarnished chronicle is waiting to be told.
We strip the polish so the skeleton is showing plain.
Navigating the geography of the systematic strain.
Yeah, the raw elements unbound. The structure is cold. The warehouse shutter closing on the final assembly tier. The watchman checking the perimeter until the coast is clear. The core document is discarded on the freezing floor. Another structural breakdown behind the industrial door. No summary is offered when the microphone line cuts dead. The chronicle is locked inside the cold iron plate instead.
The raw elements.
Started out with clean pockets and a mind full of weight, lacking any real guidance how to navigate the slate. Just a shorty in the room watching family members stress over bills on the table, trying to figure out the best way to make a single dollar stretch across the whole month. Feeling helpless as a child, hidden behind the front of being tough for the peers when you're breaking down inside, with no big brother figure where a youth can go and hide. So you look toward the older guys who seem to have it locked, emulating how they move, how they carry on the block. Desperate for validation, wanting someone just to say that you're smart enough, you're man enough to make a forward way. I remember the first time I compromised my own word just to pocket some survival money, feeling so absurd, standing in the bedroom mirror, couldn't look myself straight, realizing that the innocence was locking at the gate. The environment didn't break me, but it altered how I feel, forcing a young spirit to pick self with steel. Yeah, life shouldn't be so heavy at the tender age of 10, but you learn to grow up fast when you see the paradigm of men.
We try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we used to be, before the pressure of the dollar blinded everything we see.
Yeah, the soul sample cries while the drum beat drops, looking at the choices where the innocence stops. Yeah, we try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we
used to be.
Yeah. By the time I hit 16, the anxiety was deep. Lying awake until the morning, completely losing sleep, wondering if the current path would lead into a cage, or if I lived to see the turning of a secondary page. My homie dropped out of the circle, took a heavy left turn. We watched him disappear into a habit that would burn every bit of talent that he carried in his hand. Left us standing in the wake, trying hard to understand how a person that you shared your secret dreams with as a youth could get swallowed by the shadows and the ugly naked truth. It made me cold, it made me cautious, made me pull back from the crowd, developing the silence while the world was getting loud. I found a sanctuary hiding in the ink and the pad, writing down the frustrations and the anger that I had. The cipher soul's energy was born out of a scar, a way to process all the madness without reaching for the bar. We survived the heavy winters of the psychological strain, learning how to channel all the pressure and the pain.
We try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we used to be, before the pressure of the dollar blinded everything we see.
Yeah, the soul sample cries while the drum beat drops, looking at the choices where the innocence stops. Yeah, we try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we used to be. Yeah. The rain hitting the window pane, washing out the dirt, a long and overdue reflection on the years of hit and hurt. The tape machine hits taking over on the track, reminding me of everything that we can't buy back. No posturing is left when you're looking at the core. The raw human fabric is what's left upon the floor.
We try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we used to be, before the pressure of the dollar blinded everything we see.
The soul sample cries while the drum beat drops, looking at the choices where the innocence stops. Yeah, we try to hold on to the pieces of the kid we used to be.
With a smile, but calculate the subtraction, waiting for a momentary slip to trigger the transaction. I learned early that a man's word is a fragile currency. Most people trade it off the second they face urgency. You find out who a person is when the resources run low, and the fair weather associates pack up their bags and go. I had to isolate myself just to keep my vision clear, filtering out the false praise and the manufactured fear. They want to see you climb a ladder, but not past their own rung. Jealousy is a venom that sits quiet on the tongue. I don't offer second chances when the boundaries get crossed. You compromise the loyalty, you accept the permanent loss. It takes a lifetime to build a name that carries actual weight, but only 30 seconds of weakness to ruin the entire state. I keep my circle small because the crowd is full of noise. Pretenders playing grown-up games with childish toys. You have to stand for something or you fall for any play. That's the law of the jungle that I carry through.
You gotta know what you represent when the lights go down, and you're standing there completely alone in a crowded town. They try to bend your spine to your integrity breaks, but you hold your ground regardless of the heavy stakes. Yeah, you gotta know what you represent when the lights go down. I watched a close friend change his whole posture for a check, trading in his self-respect just to get a little deck. A temporary influence that vanished in a year. Now he's sitting in the shadows, hiding from his own mirror. The hardest pill to swallow is the betrayal from your own. The people that you broke bread with inside the danger zone. As hard as your exterior, it alters how you breathe, making it difficult to trust when someone says they won't leave. But I don't let the bitterness dictate the daily move. I just refine the execution to sharpen up the groove. The cipher path is about the discipline of mind, leaving the petty envy and the gossip far behind. You can't navigate the future if you're paralyzed by spite. Gotta channel that energy and use it for the fight. I am the architect of my own internal peace, demanding that the mental static hit a full release. Gotta know what you represent when the lights go down, and you're standing completely alone in a crowded town. They try to bend your spine and your integrity breaks, but you hold your ground regardless of the heavy stakes. Yeah, you gotta know what you represent when the lights go down. You gotta know what you represent. The twilight settling
feeling heavy over the atrial gate. A silent declaration that the hour is getting late. The distorted guitar chop loop to a tight restraint, leaving no room for the weak-willed or the faint. The final judgment isn't given by the critics in the stands. It's measured by the dedication inside your own hands.
Waking up to a different kind of sky, the pressure lifted. Looking at the hands on the watch, the time shifted from the days we were suffocating just to find a breath, to a space where we cultivate the vision before death. I slide through the morning with a completely different posture, no longer running scared from the shadow of the ledger roster. A clean linen shirt, keeping the thoughts full of line, refusing to let the old anxieties clutter up the mind. It's a beautiful thing when you realize your own value, stepping out the corner box where the limitations trial you. We spent years in the basement polishing the dialect. Now we step into the light, demanding the full respect, not for the vanity or the superficial shine, but for the hours of endurance running down the line. I see the people from the past still trapped in the same loop, but I had to spread the wings and elevate to a immediate group. You can't feel guilty for surviving the storm when you work past the midnight just to keep the spirit warm. It's a premium blend of the struggle and the grace, finally finding comfort inside your own space.
We moving through the daylight, the horizon is wide, leaving all the heavy paranoia deep down inside. The road's piano sways while the smooth bass floats. We writing history across the elevate notes. Yeah, we moving through the daylight, the horizon is wide.
They used to look at us like we were destined for the floor, but we found the master key to open up the higher door. It changes how you talk, how you look a man in the face, when you no longer gotta scramble just to secure a place. I keep the conversation sophisticated and clean, no time for the petty arguments disrupting the scene. My homie called me from the old block just to say he's proud, singing the Cypher Soul's energy rising above the cloud. It touched me to the marrow because the validation's real when it comes from the brothers who know exactly how you feel. We used to share a single meal inside a crowded room. Now we planning out a legacy to outlive the tomb. I take a long draw of air, letting the past dissolve, watching every single complicated variable resolve. You gotta celebrate the wins to keep the mind intact, otherwise the scar tissue turns into a heavy contract. We earn the right to breathe, we earn the right to smile, riding on a liquid cadence through the Metropolitan mile. We moving through the daylight.
The horizon is wide, leaving all the heavy paranoia deep down and inside. The road's piano sways while the smooth bass floats. We writing history across the elevated notes. Yeah, we moving through the daylight. The horizon is wide.
The sun sitting high above the secondary avenue. A quiet moment of clarity replacing all the damage you carried in your chest when the seasons were cold. The smooth horn section lets the final bars unfold. No explanation needed when the energy is bright. The blueprint is secure and the trajectory is right. Moving through the daylight.
The horizon is wide,
Leaving all the heavy paranoia deep
down and inside.
The rose piano sways while the smooth bass floats. We writing history across the elevated notes. Yeah, we moving through the daylight.
The horizon is wide.
this individual in the room is always the most fragile. True power operates in silence, keeping the movement agile. I watch the interactions, the subtle shifts in the posture, observing how the desperate try to write themselves on a roster. They trade long-term respect for a temporary seat at the table, building an entire reputation on a fragile and verified fable. But the truth has a way of cutting through the heavy exception, forcing a sudden realignment in the public perception. I don't engage in the back and forth for the petty debate. I just study the human variable and calculate the weight. You can't master the environment if you can't control your own mind. Reacting to every little provocation leaves you blind. So I pull back the energy, keeping the perimeter tight, analyzing the weak links before I engage in the fight. The world is a complex grid of cause and effect. If you don't map out the coordinates, you lose the respect of the few individuals who actually understand the design, while the rest of the crowd is busy chasing a crooked line. We trace the abstract lines where the strategy forms, finding the quiet center in the middle of raging storms. The trumpet loops slow while the heavy bass drops. We read in the human nature where the posturing stops. Yeah, we trace the abstract lines where the strategy forms. I met a man who claimed he had the entire sector secure, but his eyes revealed the panic that his language obscured. He was looking for an exit before the pressure applied, trapped inside the very network where his ego relied. It's a psychological trap when you buy into your own hype, an amateur mistake of a highly predictable type. I prefer to keep the operation completely detached, ensuring that the internal logic could never be matched by the outside forces trying to manipulate the play. I spent years learning how to wash the illusions away. You have to accept the reality exactly as it stands, not how you wished it looked when you were making the plans. That's the definition of discipline, the core of the growth, refusing to let the emotion violate the internal oath. We survive because we analyze the structure from deep within, recognizing the flaw before the calculation begins. We trace the abstract lines where the strategy forms, finding the quiet center in the middle of raging storms. The trumpet loops slow while the heavy bass drops. We read in the human nature where the posturing stops. Yeah, we trace the abstract lines where the strategy forms. The shadow lengthening across the cold stone floor, a final observation made behind the heavy iron door. The off-kilter trumpet sample stutters on a low note, leaving the listener with the wisdom that the silence wrote. No summary is offered when the logic is absolute. The narrative dissolves down a secondary route. Headlights kill their beams 3 blocks before the turn. Adrenaline is pumping while the midnight oil burn. My palms are getting sweaty on the steering wheel frame, checking the rearview mirror, trying to identify the name of the unmarked sedan idling beneath the broken light. A cold sweat freezing in the middle of the night. My partner hasn't said a word since we crossed the city line. Just checking the mechanism, making sure the gears align. Every instinct in my body telling me to check the floor. As we pull up to the shadow of the heavy warehouse door, you can hear a distant siren echoing across the bay. A stark reminder of the price you gotta pay if your timing isn't perfect or your calculations off. I keep my breathing shallow, muffled by a sudden cough. The silhouette is moving by the secondary gate. 2 figures stepping forward, indicating we should wait. I don't look for trouble, but I'm prepared for the worst. In this kind of environment, you gotta hit them first or get left behind completely as a memory in the dust. When you're dealing with a world where there's nobody to trust, the tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds. Navigating the dark with a paranoia feed. We watch the perimeter, we don't say a word, trusting the instinct over everything we heard. Yeah, the tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds. Yeah, the tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds. driver's side window rolls down an inch or two. A cold draft hitting, bringing everything into view. The contact drops a heavy leather satchel on the seat. No verbal confirmation, just a nod to complete the transaction that we scheduled over 40 hours back. My eyes are tracking his hands, looking for a sudden slack in his posture that would signal a deceptive design. But he steps back, slowly fading past the boundary line. I slide the gear shift in the drive, letting the engine roll, feeling a sudden release of the psychological toll. The adrenaline is fading, leaving only the fatigue as we merge back onto the expressway, escaping the league of the individuals who operate entirely in the dark, leaving nothing but a tire track to validate the mark. It takes a heavy toll on how you look at human life when every interaction is sharp like a pocket knife. But we make the clean extraction, keeping the ledger clean, disappearing back into the unmonitored scene. The tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds, navigating the dark where the paranoia feeds. We watch the perimeter, we don't say a word, trusting the instinct over everything we heard. Yeah, the tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds. Yo, yeah, the tension is rising while the cello loop bleeds. Yo, the city skyline appearing through the early morning haze. The dashboard clock ticking down the ending of the phase. The claustrophobic cello string stutters on a low vibration, bringing a sudden closure to the heavy operation. No commentary needed when you make it through the gate. The narrative is locked inside the heavy cargo weight. The tension is rising. The tension. The tension is rising. The tension is rising. Yo.
Basement down a forgotten side street lane where the air is heavy with the scent of old paper and rain. I spend hours flipping through the rows of cardboard crates, looking for the spirits trapped inside the heavy plates. The unclean vinyl acetate, the faded jacket sleeve, holding on to melodies that the modern world will leave. My fingertips are blackened by the decades of the dust, digging for a bass line that can cure the mental rust. It's a psychological escape from the pressure of the clock, a private sanctuary where the outside forces lock. I find an old jazz record from a dead musician's hand and feel an immediate connection. I could fully understand he was pouring out his frustration through a saxophone reed, long before the industry was blinded by the greed. I take the record home like a piece of sacred text, anxious just to see how the frequency connects. Dropping down a diamond needle, letting the sample spin, watching all the internal chaos finally settle within. We digging through the ruins just to find a lost master, running from the noise of the modern world faster. The vocal sample loops while the 12-inch drum snaps, mapping out the soul across the historical gaps. Yeah, we digging through the ruins just to find a lost master. My homie dropped by while the MPC was warming up. We sat in deep silence, sipping coffee from a cup, listening to the crackle of the unclaimed vinyl groove, feeling the exact moment that forces the head to move. It's more than just a rhythm, it's a way of keeping track of the human vulnerability we can never carry back. We discussed the ultra instance, the production paradigms, how a simple loop could capture the emotion of the times. You can't fake the texture of a magnetic tape machine. No digital emulation can ever match the scene. It takes patience to discipline to slice the loop right, spending hours on a half bar into the deep night. But when the bass line locks with the snapping of the snare, every single burden in your chest vanishes into the air. We are archiving the heartbeat of a generation's pain, turning the old scar tissue into something we can sustain. We digging through the ruins just to find a lost master, running from the noise of the modern world faster. The vocal sample loops while the 12-inch drum snaps, mapping out the soul across the historical gaps. Yeah, we digging through the ruins just to find a lost master. The late afternoon sun fading out behind the glass, the turntable spinning as the quiet hours pass. The nostalgic child vocal hook stutters on the fade, leaving a final tribute to the legacy we made. No summary is needed when the dedication's pure. The analog tradition will permanently endure. We digging through the ruins just to find a lost master, running from the noise of the modern world faster. The vocal sample loops while the 12-inch drum snaps, mapping out the soul across the historical gaps. Yeah, we digging through the ruins just to find a lost master.
lessen the velocity, leaving every critic paralyzed by the monstrosity of the verbal capability, agility, your mind cutting right through the imitation layers you define. I glide on the rhythm break, never making a mistake, exposing all the posture and the promises you fake. The high caliber dialect is triggering the fusion, shattering the framework of your optical illusion. Your standard predictable, a highly clinical case of a runner losing stamina before he starts to race. I hold the sector down with a permanent grip, refusing to let the focus or the dedication slip. The vocabulary is a weapon cutting like a razor blade, demanding that the total debt of discipline is paid. I'm the prime manifestation of a heavy work ethic, making the generic competition look pathetic. I don't need a golden plaque hanging on the wall to prove I am the individual who dominates the hall. The subterranean energy is rising through the floor as I step inside the booth and completely lock the door. We drop the lyric heavy, heavy from the top of the tier, clearing out the static till the architecture's clear. The drum break is punishing, the horn staff drops. We running the perimeter where the hesitation stops. Yeah, we drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The dialect is specialized, accomplished design, navigating through the spaces where the boundaries align. Your style biting the cadence, but you lacking the core, leaving your entire presentation flat on the floor. I'm precise with the vice, rolling the dice twice, slicing through the superficial layers like ice. The mental fortitude is structured like an iron plate, allowing me to carry all the psychological weight without a single hesitation or an internal doubt. I map the entire trajectory and squeeze the weakness out. You talk a great game when the microphone is cold, but turn into a ghost when the reality is told. I keep the signatures clean, the execution detached, ensuring that the internal logic can never be matched by the outside forces trying to manipulate the trend. I stand completely independent where the avenue's been, the master of the rhythm, splitting opposition clean, disappearing back into the unmonitored scene. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier, clearing out the static till the architecture's clear. The drum break is punishing, the horn staff drops. We running the perimeter where the hesitation stops. Yeah, we drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your lease expired, the balance is getting checked. No accommodation offered for a technical defect. The record needle skips across the unclean acetate, leaving the entire chronicle to accelerate. No summary is needed when the rhythm is absolute. The final paragraph is faded down the transport route. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier, clearing out the static till the architecture's clear. The drum break is punishing, the horn staff drops. We running the perimeter where the hesitation stops. Yeah, we drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. We drop the lyric from the top of the tier. Yeah, 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 yeah.
The hardest enemy to conquer is the one staring back in the glass, replaying every single past failure while the quiet hours pass. You can insulate your mind from the gossip and the outside noise, but you still gotta deal with the internal weights and alloys. I sat alone in the dark, tearing down my own architecture, subjecting every hidden motive to a clinical inspection, realizing that the ego is a trap that keeps a man small, making you defensive when you really should be learning it all. I had to shed the old habits, break the narrative I was sold before the cynicism turned my entire outlook completely cold. Growth demands a heavy price. It requires you to stand accountable for every single choice you make with your hands. It's a lonely trajectory when you decide to recalibrate, stepping out the comfort zone to alter your immediate state. They think you changed because you no longer join the parade, but you're just busy fixing the foundation that the ignorance made. Yeah, we do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep, confronting all the doubts to try to steal away to sleep. The rider for the police, round a double bass, buck slow, digging through the internal soil just to help the spirit grow. Yeah, we do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep. It takes a different kind of courage to admit when you're wrong, to look at your own flaws instead of singing a prideful song. I watch my own peers let their envy dictate the play, blaming the environment for everything that went astray. But the mirror doesn't lie, it reflects the unvarnished fact. You either do the heavy lifting or you sign a weak contract with mediocrity, letting the potential simply dissolve. I chose to face the friction, letting the inner matrix evolve. No longer seeking validation from a superficial crowd, developing a steady internal peace while the world is loud. The craft became a sanctuary, a place to
process the strain, learning how to extract the wisdom from the psychological pain. You can't build a legacy on a foundation of unhealed scars. You gotta do the maintenance before you try to reach for the stars. I lock the thoughts into alignment, keeping the focus severe, clearing out the mental static until the vision is crystal clear. Crystal clear, crystal clear, crystal clear. We do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep, confronting all the doubts to try to steal away the sleep. The rattles roll in, solid double bass pluck, slow digging through the internal soil just to help the spirit grow. Yeah, we do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep. The candle burning down to the final drop of the wax, a silent confirmation that the mind is dropping attacks of your old anxieties that used to clutter up the scene, leaving nothing but a profound clarity. Sharp and clean, no summary is necessary when the self-realization is total. The chronicle is sealed within a code that is strictly internal. We do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep, confronting all the doubts to try to steal away the sleep. The final full rings while the double bass plucks, slow digging through the internal soil just to help the spirit grow. Yeah, we do the shadow work when the midnight hour gets deep, 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 gets deep.
Changing up the wardrobe just to match a new trend. Grow individuals, letting the corporate matrix bend their entire perspective for momentary glance from the crowd, trading in their true substance just to be exceptionally loud. They make a mockery of the heritage, simplifying the expression, turning the sacred culture into a shallow obsession with superficial metrics and temporary numbers on a screen. But they look incredibly fragile when you step behind the scene. The music business is a mill grinding down the human soul, turning unique individuals into a predictor role. I refuse to participate in the manufacturing line. I'd rather keep the pockets lean and compromise the design of a mind that was sharpened by the actual struggle of life. You can't simulate the wisdom or the handling of the strife. They want the fruits of the labor without the planting of the seed. Blinded by a short-sighted, highly predictable greed, but the audience can feel when the energy is synthetic. Watching a grown man compromise himself is just pathetic. They chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor, trading their integrity to open up a commercial door. The warp synth loops while the heavy drum hits. We standing independent where the imitation splits. Yeah, they chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor. They talk about the wealth, but they are spiritually bankrupt and broke, living in a hall of mirrors, suffocating on the smoke of their own manufactured hype, waiting for the bubble to burst, paralyzed by the fear of not being validated. First, I keep my operation completely outside the entire grip, maintaining the exact same principles I carried as a kid. You can't buy back the respect once you hand it away, no matter how many shiny plaques you manage to display. I look at the landscape and I feel a profound attachment, refusing to let my value be defined by an attachment to a passing phase or a corporate entity's whim. I'd rather swim across the current than sink down with them. The true masters of the craft don't need to beg for a look. They just deliver the truth and let history write the book. We keep the heritage unpolluted, the execution severe, ensuring that the unvarnished chronicling stays crystal clear. That they chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor, trading their integrity to open up a commercial door. The warp synth loops while the heavy drum hits. We standing independent where the imitation splits. Yeah, they chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor. On the floor. On the floor. The studio monitors humming as the session comes to a close. A final observation on how the industry paradigm goes to warp funk. Synth loop stutters on a low end vibration, leaving a permanent statement for the entire generation. No summary is required when the distinction is made. The authentic lineage will never permanently fade. Chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor, trading their integrity to open up a commercial door. The warp synth loops while the heavy drum hits. We standing independent where the imitation splits. Yeah, they chasing after mass appeal, slipping on the floor. On the floor.
but the circle stays awake, moving as a single unit for the collective sake. I look across the vehicle, no words are required. When you're running with the people who are similarly wired, we spent years in the shadows watching alliances fray, learning who would stand firm and who would drift away. The passenger side mirror tracking the highway lane, sharing a thermos of coffee to counter the physical strain. It's a silent understanding built on years of shared dust, a rare human connection rooted in absolute trust. We don't talk about the loyalty, we just manifest the action, keeping the perimeter secure from any outside distraction. I watch my brother's posture, he's looking out the glass, reading the environment as the quiet hours pass. We survive the heavy seasons by protecting the core, ensuring that the vulnerability never washed ashore. Now we steer the collective vessel through the midnight blue, accountable to the lineage and the chosen few, keeping the night watch till the morning light breaks, navigating the dark regardless of the heavy stakes. The muted trumpet sighs while the dark bass rolls, a celebration of the brotherhood that anchors our souls. Yeah, we keeping the night watch till the morning light breaks. Headlights cutting clean through the coastal fog, the driver logging the mileage inside the mental log. We started out as dreamers with a single pad of ink. Now we're building up a structure that can never melt or sink. I remember when the circle had to divide the last bread, lying on a crowded floor with a mind full of dread. Those are the defining moments that cement the bond, creating a resilience that stretches far beyond any temporary setback or a seasonal chill. You can't manufacture this alignment with a skill. It's forged in the friction of surviving the test, knowing exactly who will cover your back when you rest. I lean back in the seat, letting the rhythm take hold, watching the final miles of the journey unfold. We don't need the validation of a superficial crowd when the respect within the circle is exceptionally loud. The transport is smooth, the execution is tight, disappearing as a brotherhood into the fading night. We keeping the night watch till the morning light breaks, navigating the dark regardless of the heavy stakes. The muted trumpet sighs while the dark bass rolls, a celebration of the brotherhood that anchors our souls. Yeah, we keeping the night watch till the morning light breaks. Lights flickering against the morning sky, the final bass line looping as the remaining hours die. The smoky muted trumpet phrase slows down its pace, leaving a permanent impression inside the quiet space. No summary is offered when the bond is complete. The archive is secure and the project is elite.